Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today, Sanders rising. Yes, it seems that Senator Bernie Sanders may be primed to overtake Joe Biden and win the Iowa caucuses, possibly setting him up to take the whole kit and caboodle. Now, as you can see from this poll and also the polls currently from Iowa, it seems like Biden's got this. However, compare these polls to another race with an upset, led by a person who, and while opinions of him have changed, at the time was considered quite the progressive. Barack Obama. Now, first let's take a look at where we currently are in the race before we start making fun comparisons. So, 2020 Democratic presidential nomination. Bernie Sanders has seen a massive spike in the polls, taking him to almost 23%, and if his rise continues, possibly even 30%, challenging Joe Biden for first. He even recently had a poll which put him in first place, done by CNN of all people. Let's just say they don't get along historically. Now, let's compare this to Barack Obama. Now, I'm going to put in a similar date of time, because unfortunately it doesn't stick around. Now, I want to make a note. I will be using December and June as opposed to July and January due to the fact that in 2018 the Iowa caucuses occurred in early January. Now, as you can see, in the lead-up to this, in national polls, Barack Obama trailed Hillary Clinton by almost 20%. Which was completely unexpected. However, if we reset back to our initial length, immediately after the Iowa caucuses and his victory, he sees a massive spike, but it doesn't put him in first nationally, as well as Clinton taking a notable decline. And with a third candidate in the race polling around the 10-15% area, in this case being John Edwards, this can be our analogy for our Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren. Minor spike after the caucuses, but due to mistakes and little support, they drop out after the initial first four states, leaving a Clinton versus Obama race. Also, you'll have to forgive the periodic refreshes. Nothing I can do about it. But also, all the minor polling candidates, in this case, ironically, Biden and Richardson, dropped out early. Or dropped out immediately after the Iowa caucuses, realizing they have no chance. I imagine this will replicate itself with many of the very low polling candidates, such as Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard, will drop out pretty prominently after January. But Barack Obama, even after the first four states, did not see his massive increase to overtake Hillary Clinton until just after Super Tuesday, at which point he maintained a solid but tight lead, and I imagine we'll see this replicated once again in 2020. So let's pop back over to our current race, and you can see where I'm drawing my analogies. Now, granted, Edwards never had a spike like Warren did, but we do have three candidates, as well as a series of minor candidates hanging on at the bottom. And these two are very close, with our insurgent progressive beginning to rise up ever so slightly, while the incumbent and current moderate favorite is holding the line, not setting them up very good as more and more people learn about their candidate. So let's move over to Iowa itself. Now, as you can see here, Sanders has actually dropped in the averages due to the fact he did horribly in this FRA poll and in the Monmouth poll. Well, not horribly in Monmouth, but enough to drop him, after scoring very highly in the last Des Moines Register poll before the Iowa caucus. And I also do want to take note, there have not been very many polls in recent weeks. This is slightly different than what happened in 2018, which, as you can see, there were quite a few more polls in the lead-up, especially in December. This was a very tight race, but there were also significantly more groups doing the research. However, if you notice, right before the Iowa caucuses, Barack Obama actually had a notable decline after ever so tightly taking the lead. Only to the basically day before the caucuses shoot up to victory. Now, I am not saying this will happen for Senator Sanders, but I will make the analogy between the key Des Moines Register poll, which showed Barack Obama leading by 7 points, and arguably they got the margins closest compared to everyone else. This also happened in 2016, if I recall correctly. Now, as you can see, Barack Obama, while he got more percentage points in the polls, as did Edwards, he still ended up with about a 7 to 8 point lead, which is what the Des Moines Register predicted. And none of the rest of the polls got it. Well, there's one down here, but that was almost a month out, and done by a Republican group. So you can see why I'm making these analogies. But let's go further. The final average showed Barack Obama barely leading. Joe Biden doing great. He ended up with 5%, Richardson 5%, Edwards 26%, and Clinton 29%. And the only person who came close to matching their averages was Hillary Clinton. Everyone else either overperformed or underperformed, and this is commonplace with the caucuses. If you want to hear more about that, you can check out my video on the first 4 states. Sorry, shameless plug, but easier to see it there. I have pretty visuals and everything. But the candidates who were ascendant, both Edwards and Obama, had some serious momentum behind them, and both were able to overachieve, but Barack Obama especially, he was able to get basically 7 points over what he was expected to get. And part of this is due to the minor candidates losing all of their support, because that's how a caucus works. You have a lot of people lower down, and you don't get delegates until you have 15% in the polls. So if your candidate's only at 5%, you want your vote to matter. And so you throw it behind one of the bigger candidates. And Senator Sanders has the most support amongst his base in saying they're going to stick with him. Most retention. Joe Biden has one of the lowest. So it's likely many candidates, when they, or voters, caucus goers, when they see the events of the caucus unfolding, they will go with the side that excites them, that's providing this big, energetic message, and that is Sanders' side. Not to mention, he has a very positive view amongst the average American, including in Iowa, despite the little kerfuffle that happened with Warren recently. As such, it's very likely he'll be able to nab many of their current supporters. So, actually, we have 2016 presidential polls. Do we happen to have... Here we go. For the 2020 presidential caucus. As you can see, Sanders way overperformed. Actually, he overperformed by roughly 6 percentage points. Just shy of 7, which is not shocking. And then O'Malley, polling at about 5%, loses all of his support. Clinton, she slightly overperformed. I think that's because she absorbed some of O'Malley, but kind of kept steady. So, if we go back to our current Iowa caucus image, let's assume the same thing happens. Biden holds steady and takes about 24, 25, 26%, about where he's been holding. Sanders overperforms by 6 to 7% against his average, which his average is 17, so we're going off RCP average, so Biden gets between 21 and 24. Sanders overperforms by 6 to 7. He ends up going up to 23, 24. That's a win. Warren, functioning as our Edwards, overperforms a little bit, gets about 18, 19. Let's say Buttigieg also overperforms 18, 19. Well, all of these minor candidates, their supporters disappear. And many of them are actually quite liable to switch to someone like Warren or Sanders, candidates who have a massive energetic base behind them, so they could overperform in the polls even more. But then, and I just want to make this connection because while history does not repeat itself, it does rhyme, If Sanders were to overperform by 6 to 7%, that would leave him at roughly +3 in the final Iowa caucus results, exactly as the Des Moines Register poll predicted, much like in 2018. I think there are many connections that can be drawn between these two races, and that is why I think Senator Sanders is going to win the Iowa caucuses, and if history holds true, we'll see a massive upswing and will most likely overtake and defeat Joe Biden. With all that being said, please leave a like down below. If you have an opinion on this video, please feel free to comment it. Otherwise, if you wish to see more from this channel, please remember to subscribe and click the notification bell. Otherwise, as always, have a wonderful day.